Good morning, everybody. Another episode of the Keep Going podcast, athlete shining a light on mental health. I got Rock Valley's finest, Matt Majer, here today. But before we go into that, David Mitchell, talk about your snowboarding over the last 20 inches of snow out there in Colorado.
Yeah, no, this week the snow came. I think we got a little over 24 inches of snow here. The mountain's starting to open up, and yeah, it's winter here for sure.
Yeah, for people that are counting at home, that's 2 Subway foot-long sandwiches of snow, and that's never good. Never good unless you're an avid snowboarder or a skier like David Mitchell. Matt Majer, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good. How you fellas doing? Appreciate you guys having me.
No, we're happy to have you, man. It's definitely a long time coming. For the listeners that don't know, Matt played at Rock Valley during the time that Dave was there, and then I also coached both these boys. And Matt's a family member. He's my second cousin, so it's
Yep.
always good to have family in here, keeping it real close and impacting some people today. Matt, before we go into anything, man, talk about mental health, what that means to you, and why you felt like, hey, I'm gonna wake up on Sunday, jump on the pot with the boys.
Well, the first thing I always think about is, especially going back to that time at RBC, I was kind of in the mindset like I didn't really believe in the mental health. I kind of just thought like, you know, either you're happy with life or you're sad with life, like you control that. And then after struggling at RBC for a year or two, and everything that's happened, I'm sure we'll get more into it. I started struggling and started having some mental health problems myself, which kind of opened my eyes to this whole kind of thing and really what people go through. So I've been taking it a lot more serious, and especially with how important your mental affects your other life and your other duties. So just kind of learning more about the subject and kind of educating myself on how to properly go through all the mental health stuff and kind of how to keep yourself on track in life. So
I like that. I went through something very similar. I didn't really think mental health was real. I've talked about it in a lot of episodes, and then all of a sudden it kind of just hits you, right?
right.
It can be scary. It can be something that your friends and family might not know how to deal with. So I think we talk about it every week, but continue to be aware of those situations and share it with people. You never know what's going to help you and kind of how to move
And
forward.
that's what I learned early on, was kind of like I would just wake up and not want to do anything or just feel sad for no reason or stuff like that. And kind of just realizing that it is real and it can happen to you, and here are some things that help you and stuff like that. So kind of did open my eyes as well.
No doubt, no doubt. And we'll get into all that, Matt. I appreciate you being vulnerable very early on and talking about that. I know it's hard, obviously, from personal experience with myself and Dave on this pod. Dave, you obviously big mental health advocate. We talk about that. You do a great job with our socials. If you haven't checked that out, Dave does a fantastic job. Dave, in the mental health side, like when this kind of became a normality for people, when did that kind of change in your life? When did you kind of take that focus as well?
Yeah, I think RVC. I think I had a good mentality. I was strong there. I think it really hit me when I went a little bit further away from home, to my second school that I went to at Mount Mercer University. And just the playing side of things affected me more. I kind of put a lot of stress on myself, trying to perform as an athlete. And that's kind of when I kind of went downhill and lost confidence and just didn't feel good about myself, and used other things to try to make me feel better. But really, that was just not good for my mental health. So I realized that I had to start working on myself to get better.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I think the reason I ask is you guys are going through the same age bracket. Like you guys are going through the same stuff, the COVID stuff, and then everything going on like in your specific age bracket. We had Ashton on last week, and she talked about the COVID period and the performance anxiety and things that were going on for you guys in that time. I want to kind of back up a little bit though, Matt. I want to talk about when you started playing sports and kind of what sports meant to you growing up, man.
I've been playing sports my whole life for as long as I can remember. I think it was like flag football at 4 or 5, t-ball at 4 or 5, basketball. And kind of sports to me growing up as a kid was kind of just a way to get out and, be with your friends. And I love the competitive nature of just competing against people and as a young athlete, I just loved being on the field, running around. And then kind of in high school is when you start taking sports a little bit more seriously. You start incorporating it into your life a little bit more. But honestly, to me, my favorite part about sports and looking back is like, for example, like I remember, say, 2 years after I played ball with Dave, I was in Iowa City, hit him up, we reconvened. It was great. Just the connections and the friendships that you make from sports are just unmatched.
I love that, man. And do you think, and this is, more just knowing you, do you think that's what made it so awesome? Like, your family like pushing you growing up to be in sports, to go through that, having your boys in like Elk Grove. Like, do you think that was a huge part of your come up?
I honestly, I think the biggest part of my come up was my grandpa,
Yeah.
because he was the one that was, he was always on me, grinding me, telling me like, you know, he knew early on, like, if you wanted to be good at something, you had to put the effort and the training in. So he was taking me to the batting cages and whatever extracurricular activities I wanted to do to help me get better at sports. He would be there, give me a gym pass, give me, if I had hitting lessons, I needed hit lessons. He would pick me up, take me there, pay for them. But I would also say, like, just being around with the guys and all the boys around in Elk Grove and, playing travel ball with them growing up. And then you go to high school and you play with them and then maybe even off to college and play with them. So it's kind of just like turns into your whole life at a young age.
No doubt. When did that light bulb kind of go off that it was going to be baseball? This was going to be what you were going to get paid to play the game at the college level. When did that kind of just go off for you?
Honestly, I didn't really take it too serious in high school. Like my junior, I can't remember if it was my junior or senior. I was still taking visits for football too. So I didn't
Yeah,
even
I
know if I
remember that.
wanted to. I remember I took the visit at Carthage for football, and then I think I called you, and I think I was at RVC like the next week doing a visit.
Yeah. It's
So
crazy how quick that happens. Yeah, go ahead.
it wasn't until I think after my senior year of football, I decided like, hey, I'm gonna play baseball. Like I was
Yeah.
a pretty late one, but I knew I wanted to go JUCO, so I knew I kind of had that flexibility to make my decision late.
No doubt. And that's something that I always look at in the dual sport process. It's a little bit different. Like my brother went through it, obviously.
For sure.
When you have two different sports, like, and you're leaning one way, leaning the other, you could probably play both at some levels. How did you deal with the stress of that, man? Because there's a lot going on when you have two sports you're really good at, believe it or not.
Well, looking back at it, at that time, that was before I was really mental health, or if anything was stressful, I kind of just try to block it out, or I just had unhealthy habits of how to just keep that away from me. So I would say, the stress, I would probably just distract myself or just try not to think about it because, like I said, back then I didn't really believe in mental health and that stigma. But I think what really helped me was I sat down and talked to my grandpa,
Yeah.
and he was a big part of like, this is what you want. Like, obviously, we're going to support you no matter what, but I think you should do X, Y, and Z. And so,
Yeah, I want to throw it to Dave. In the supporting cast part of stuff, like going to your people. How do you feel about that? I know you're pretty advocate. You're a big advocate on that, and like leaning on your people when you need it. Talk about that, Dave.
For me,
Yeah, for
yeah,
you, Dave. Yeah,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, having people around you is always important. Just to have someone to talk to. Um, and if you aren't feeling okay or you're unsure about a decision, talk through it with someone. Just get your feelings out. It's hard to just keep everything inside all the time. And people are here to help you through the process, I would say.
yeah, Dave. And the reason I wanted to ask you that is you talked about it earlier, and you haven't really talked about this on many episodes. I'm going to kind of pick your brain on it. You talked about it. I'm going to go to Matt too. Dave, you talked about how you were doing some other stuff to try to block out some of this stuff. What were the stuff you were kind of doing, and what did you replace them with? I'm going to ask Matt the same thing.
Yeah, I would say just distractions. Going out a little bit too much, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe going out to the bar instead of just staying in, wanting to always kind of stay distracted with something outside of outside of my sport. Because when I was going through it and maybe um, I was just putting a lot of pressure on myself to perform, and that I don't think always is the best thing for someone mentally, instead of just trusting what you are doing during practice and not overthinking outside of practice how I'm going to play this how I'm gonna practice, how I'm gonna perform all the time. And for
Yeah.
me, I kind of just went outside and um, got distracted with going out a little bit, maybe too much
Yeah.
in school, and maybe thought, oh, this makes me feel better, but really it was only making me feel better temporarily.
Yeah. I think that's a huge thing. And Matt, I have an idea of where you're going with the same question. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, like, what did you do that was quote unquote wrong? And what have you kind of learned as an adult?
Well, I would say especially in the college days, I had a bunch of unhealthy habits, whether that be drinking, partying, getting into some other extracurricular stuff. Even just as little as like, if I had a big test the next day and I know I should study, like I'd probably go play 2K or something all night to distract myself. Or
Right.
like Dave said, you get the temporary satisfaction, like, okay, I don't have to study right now. But then you wake up in the morning, you're freaking out about the test, your anxiety's going through the roof, you're even more stressed than you were last night. So I just figured like, yeah, college I was very unhealthy, and I don't think I was able to really fix those problems till probably like a year or two after college, because I myself was like, I remember for the first couple months at RBC my sophomore year, I knew I wasn't doing all right, I was down, but I just didn't want to tell anyone because I was kind of like embarrassed,
Of
or
course.
maybe didn't really even believe in myself. So kind of just struggling through that. I think the hardest part is kind of accepting that you're there and like realizing you're there and then being like, okay, from here I need to go up, or I need to do this. I need to replace, say, drinking with maybe reading a book or just watching a TV show. But it's definitely, you definitely got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, like I know like I'm not okay right now.
And going off that, for
That's
me,
strong. That's strong. Yeah.
I think it's hard to be self-aware when you are doing that. But what's
Yeah.
one thing that you would suggest to someone that maybe doesn't know they're actually doing it? How do you become more self-aware?
Um, I remember Dave, I'm kind of gonna go back to leaning on your supporting cast.
Hmm.
I remember what did it for me was I had a phone call with my mom, and she finally was like, just kept saying like, I know something's not like, I know something's wrong. Like, why won't you just like trust me and tell me like? And finally, it was like that trust. She was right. Like, she's my mother. Like, I should be able to trust you with how I feel and what I'm going through. So I finally just told her everything. I remember broke down, started crying. It's probably like a 2-hour conversation. She came up to Rockford later that day, took me out to eat. So kind of just having my mother there and to finally put my trust into somebody else and not just like try to face it all myself, fighting those demons, or not demons, but fighting all those battles in your head by yourself. I finally trusted somebody else and my mother and opened up to her, and she was a huge like opening gate to this process of me recovering and getting onto a better track of life. So I would say if you have a supporting cast around you of people that love and care for you, it's way easier to kind of be open to seeing how you're struggling, or maybe you're not 100% okay, because not everyone wants to hear that. Like, I know you're struggling, some people might take that the wrong way, but if it's coming from a good source of love and care, then I think it's good.
That's beautiful, man. Knowing your mom, I think that's incredible. And that's an ode to everything that she's meant in your life. And that's crazy. And we talk about all the time, like the embarrassment piece. It's hard to be vulnerable when like you've
Right,
been the man, Matt. Like you were a
right,
two-sport guy. You were someone that when you took the mound, and you know this, when you took the mound, we expected to win.
right,
And then all of a sudden, the guy that everybody looks to is struggling. That can be really tough to put that ego aside
for
and
sure.
say all of a sudden, guys, I need to take a step back. And like people be like, what? That doesn't make any
Es-
sense. Talk about
Especially,
that for a second. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the hardest part was like me. I would always tell everyone like it's all about your confidence. Like if you want to do anything, if you want to like, if someone's like, oh well, I'm nervous, blah blah. It's like, well, you can't be like that. Like, oh, you want to go talk to that girl? Go, have some confidence. Go talk to her. Or, oh, you're struggling at the plate. Like, no, have some confidence in yourself. Choke up, grip and rip. But it was kind of weird when I was telling other people to be confident in themselves, but then I would look at myself and I had no confidence in myself at all. So that's where I knew I was kind of like, yo, you're not even practicing what you're preaching over here.
Right. You start yeah, that's powerful. You start feeling like I'm a fraud.
Yeah, no, literally, I remember being at practice just telling everyone like, hey, like, have some more confidence, like trust yourself, blah blah. And I go home in the mirror and I look at myself and I'm like, I don't know who this is.
I told, and I'm gonna go to Dave. I had this happen when I was going through a lot of my mental health struggles. This was like 4 or 5 years ago now, pre-COVID. And I remember you're almost hoping someone notices.
For sure. That's when my mom finally said, I think there's almost something in me. I was like, finally. Like here's like an
Yeah.
opening for me to
Yeah.
finally like not seem embarrassed, like
Right.
and be able to get it all off my chest.
I got people literally in my wedding coming up in October that like had no idea. So like the lesson so far today, 20 minutes in, is it's not going to happen organically. No,
No,
someone's not going to be like, hey, because on the outside, you're going to be showing very similar signs. It's
for
the
sure.
inside that you're not showing. That's what you're hoping someone realizes. So for anybody listening today, talk about it, go over it, trust in somebody who doesn't matter who it is. If that person doesn't get it or understand, go to the next person, because
Right.
it's so much easier once you start sharing these feelings and setting this stuff kind of free. Go ahead, Dave.
Not only is it important to talk about it, check on other people. Check on
Yeah.
the person that is doing the best you think in your mind.
Dude, yes,
Because
yes.
the people that are doing the best usually hide it the best too.
Well, that's
Man,
what I was about to say. I was really good at hiding and like, you know, Dave, I was the goofy, funny guy, always wanted to crack a joke, smile, and laugh. And as soon it's when you're by yourself, you know, when it's late at night, no one's there, you're in your room, laying in bed by yourself, your mind starts going crazy, all these overthinking what ifs. That's when it hits you the most. But yeah, definitely check in on the goofy, fun loving people because there are a lot of good actors out there.
100%. It's almost like that look in the mirror. I had that very similar. Like, how did I get to this point?
Well, think about it, P. I didn't know that you were struggling until I finally opened up about my struggles to you. So yours
Right.
is probably 2 years after you went through it.
Right. You don't know, man, because I'm that guy too. For everyone that knows, and like we all know that. Like I'm the guy that I'm always out. I'm always laughing,
Yeah.
always joking around. I just buried that stuff for a long time. But like the point we're trying to make it, it's very, very, common is you wanna tell somebody, you want to say I'm struggling, but you don't want to be the guy that, oh, okay, so now Matt, we don't trust him anymore.
Yeah,
There's a line there. But
for
once you
sure.
realize, and I talked about with Ashton's episode last week, she gets help, right? She's struggling. She gets help. She comes back. She's conference pitcher of the week. She comes back. She's dominating. And then it's
Right.
like, okay, you can come back even better. So take a little bit of a setback to come back, double down, and go ball. And I think that's huge in a sports podcast like we're on. Dave, I got to go back to you, though, because, like, once again, dude, you were a guy that early on in high school struggled as a baseball player. We've been very honest with this podcast. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 different colleges are paying you to play. How about the expectation once you're good, man? Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. I think it's coming down to believing in yourself that you can do it and you will get through this hard time. Everybody goes through good times and hard times. And going off that idea, I got a question for Matt here. Like, everybody goes through good times and hard times, but it's really hard to find the good and the hard, if that makes sense.
It does.
Right.
How do you look back and just take an outside perspective of like, okay, everything's going to be okay?
I feel like it's hard. Like we were talking about in the moment, it's hard to do that. But I think once you can look back on a couple of things, like Dave, I still tell everyone like Rock Valley was 2 of the best years of my life with the people I met, the memories we made, just all the connections that. But at the same time, I struggled probably the most of my life during those 2 years. So I look at it as there's always beauty in the struggle. Yes, there's some of the best days I've had at RBC, and there's also some of the worst days. honestly, in the moment, I really couldn't tell you how to kind of step back and enjoy it because I think it's hard to do that myself. I'm more of a person who likes to look back at situations and be like, you know what, I appreciate that happened. Like, even if something bad happened to me, I took it as a lesson.
Mm.
Like, I learned from that. So even off of that, I'm like, I still took something off of that experience.
Yeah.
And going off being a teammate of yours at RVC, I had no idea as a
Yeah,
teammate.
see, I told
Yeah.
you, did I?
Every
They,
single time that I would go to practice or game or see Matt Majer, you just bring a smile to my face.
yep.
Right? I get
Yeah.
to see Matt today. And know that you bring happiness and smiles to other people. You impact other people in a
Yeah.
way that I can't describe.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot, Dave. Dave, I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, sophomore year, I remember I wanted to go home so badly. And then when we pulled into the parking lot from our spring break trip and Chad told everyone to go home.
Yep.
I remember I was so happy that we were going home because I wanted to get out of there so badly. And now I look back at it as like I would do anything to finish that season out. Like with that team, that group of guys, I would give anything to go back. So kind of like I kind of wish I didn't have that attitude during that time period. And I was definitely struggling the most when we came back and at that time. But looking back at it, you kind of just like, I definitely did learn a lot from that year. But I do
Yeah.
appreciate everything you did say about me, Dave, because you were one of the guys I was closer to on the team.
I love that. And that makes me happy, like coaching during that time. And I know that was a tough time for all of us then. And I guess it keeps going back to the same message. You never know what people are going through. And life is so impressionable. Like everything you do, the ripple effect is a real thing. Like every ripple you make could ripple into good things for other people. I think that's clear on today's call. What I will say, Matt, is I got to ask you. I know we've touched on some pretty tough stuff already. I want to ask you your keep going moment. It can be something that we've touched on already today, or something that you want to bring up totally different. What's your keep going moment?
Um, I would say really probably happened like a year after I left RBC. I started working in commercial flooring, manual labor, really hard work, and got a girlfriend and all that. And I remember just one day, it just kind of clicked to me like my keep going is definitely my family. My mom, my dad, brother, sister, girlfriend. I would do anything for them. And waking up every day and trying to be the best man that I can be for them, not for me, but for them and for the people around me. And also just trying to be the best role model to my younger brother. That's another big keep going thing for me. I want to show him because I don't want him to have to go through his young 20s struggling like I did and feel like you don't have anyone. So just kind of being there for him, but definitely my biggest keep going is family.
I love that, man. I love
So
that. And being a family member of yours, we're very happy to have you here, and I'm very blessed to know you, man. And that's very clear, man. You've been a big impact on my life, of course. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. Family is important. They're here for you. They're always going to be an open phone call. They're always going to be here for you to talk to. Even if you don't think that, possibly, they are here for you.
Love that. Let's go
They love
rapid
you.
fire questions, Dave. I'm gonna have you go first, man. I want to make sure to get you to work on time too. So you're up first.
Yeah. Got to go to the good old RBC days. What's one of your favorite moments at RBC?
oh yeah, one of my favorite moments at RBC. Uh honestly, probably as much as it sucked during the time, but those bus rides to and from Texas, there's just probably hours and hours of stories, karaoke stories, Chad P stories,
Shout out
Justin
Chad P while
Justin
we're here.
Justin Kaz stories.
Shout out Kaz too while we're here.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of my favorite kind of like side memories, Dave, is remember when me, you, and Blank went to the facility in the Jeep with the top down, and on the way home it started pouring rain. We drove home in a thunderstorm the last like 35 minutes.
I remember it. Yep.
That I
Yeah.
think about that time a little bit too. That's
Just so many good times of just being together. It
right.
doesn't matter on, off the field, on the bus, in the hotel room, appreciate just
Right.
when you're there.
Right. Like, think about it. Like, I remember, dude, Texas, think about just walking to the gas station as a team was fun. Going out to all the restaurants were fun. Swimming in the hotel pool.
Yeah,
For the
man.
people that know, Stumpapalooza happened.
Yeah, don't forget. Yeah, shout out Kyle Davis while we're here. I think we've gone 100 episodes out shouting that guy out. Shout out Kyle Stumpy Davis. Hope you're listening somewhere, Kyle. I love you, man. That's awesome. Love that. Love that. All right, I got one. Okay. We talk about the football side of things. You got a must-win game. Your life is on the line. Who's starting the game at quarterback for you?
There's got to be a current quarterback.
It can be any quarterback, high school, college, pro. Game on the line. Who are you starting at quarterback?
I'm gonna stick with a current quarterback. Honestly, probably right now, I'd honestly maybe take Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. All right.
Dude, Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. I
If I
like
had to
that
take a
pick.
college quarterback, maybe give me a College Station, Texas A&M, Johnny Football.
Johnny Football. Nice. He's got a great mental health podcast he's on right now. Glory Days. Fantastic. If you haven't checked that out. Shameless plug. We have no affiliation with Glory Days podcast. But yeah, great podcast, mental health. He's talking about a lot of that stuff. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. For someone that is entering a change or maybe going into a new chapter, starting a new school, starting a new sport, what would you tell them?
The biggest thing that I like to do when I'm in new spots is I'm okay with being uncomfortable. So if I'm in a new spot, I'm gonna try to meet new people. So like, first thing I'm gonna do is like I have no problem talking to strangers. So I'd say if you're going to a new school, new team, new area, new anything, the first I would just say just try to make yourself open to everybody. Try to make some new friends, talk to people. People are awesome. People nowadays, like strangers kind of got the connotation, like, you know, you don't know how people are. People are crazy these days. I'm kind of the opposite where I have faith in people and I'll give people the benefit of the doubt. So I'd say just be open and friendly to everyone that you meet or come across.
Love it. Connect with people.
Yeah, right.
Me and you are definitely the same way. I'm the guy in New York that everyone says don't talk to people in New York. And I'm the guy saying good morning and they're just looking at me. I don't care. Like, that doesn't matter. I'd rather take that chance and get the impact. I think it's a great lesson. Like, I'd rather take the impact chance than fall back on missing opportunity.
For sure. Just think about all the crazy stories or just the little side stories that you've gotten from talking to a random person, or especially in a city like New York or Chicago, or you never know who you're sitting next to or talking to or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's a quote. And I've talked about on this podcast before. It's like, you never know if that person's on their last moment, that their last day in their head. And like, they're looking for someone to make the outside connect, right? I think that's so powerful. No, love that. I got chills from that. That's fantastic.
Another thing that I like doing is I'm not afraid to compliment a stranger. Like if I see something that I like I'll be like, hey, like I like your boots, or hey, like I like this. Like just a little compliment to a complete stranger can go such a long way.
Dude, 100%. I had that happen with my Carhartt at Walmart yesterday. I'm wearing a Carhartt from like 6 years ago, and a guy goes, dude, that's dope. I was like, dude, no, like, you're dope. Like, I appreciate you at 20 years old being like, so once again, be aware of like how to make people's day. Like, if you have a chance to go make somebody's day, go make it. Go do it. Yeah. Why not? I mean, come on. Life is so damn short. Life is so fragile. I love that.
And I'm also a big believer in karma. So I think like you keep doing nice things for people, something nice is going to happen to you eventually.
That ripple effect, man. You never know what we talked about earlier, that good is going to reach. That good could reach someone. I talked about with Ashton. I mentioned her several times. You know, that good reaches New York, and all of a sudden, you know, we're who we are now. It's like it's crazy how life goes. Crazy. I got one more for you, Matt. And it goes back to the RVC road trips.
Oh,
Chad P and the bus driver get to pick a food spot. Where you hope we're going?
Where am I hoping we're going, or where is Chad P probably taking us?
Okay, there's a big difference there. We won't go into that. But where do you think, okay, best case scenario, what's the best food spot on the road?
Best case scenario, the best food spot was when Chad P gave you the choice. When you'd go somewhere and you had the choice of what you wanted compared to, all right, we're getting pizzas, or all right, everyone's getting a hot dog. If you had the choice of what you were going to eat, it was a pretty good meal.
I love that. Dave, you got one more? Go ahead.
Nah, I think we covered it all. Is there anything else you want to share on this podcast to our listeners today?
The only thing I'll say is I remember what really changed my attitude a couple years ago when I was struggling is I had a really like why me or like kind of a victim attitude. And I live off the glass half full now. I try to find the positive in everything. Yeah. So if you can find a positive in anything, it'll make the situation at least a little bit better.
Love it, man. I will cap us off. I do want to give you your flowers here, man. You know, as my cousin, as a former player of mine, as a friend of mine, as a brother, as a mentor, as a molder of men, watching you grow as a person over the last 4 or 5 years, man, has been inspiring. And when you called me earlier this week about the podcast, I kept trying to reassure you that you'd be awesome.
You told Dave about it?
I did not. I just kept telling you, I'm like, dude, you're going to be fantastic. And there were several times where I've teared up and I've got the chills on this conversation. Thank you for doing that for hundreds and thousands of people today, dude.
Dave, thank you for having me. Yeah, Dave, did he tell you I called him in the middle of the week kind of freaking out. I had a nervous breakdown about coming on.
Hey, you killed it.
Yeah, man. You were absolutely fantastic, Dave. And I know a lot of people that might be looking to get out of their comfort zone and they're kind of worried about it. Matt got out of his comfort zone today and did a great job. So, Matt, I love you for that. I appreciate you for that. And all in all, guys, keep going. All right, boys?
Thank you, fellas.
All right, boys. Keep going.
Keep going.